Welcome to Waking the Why, a podcast about uncovering the purpose behind life's crucible moments. Each episode, you'll hear from real people who turn their struggles into strength and their stories into light. If you're searching for meaning, walking through something hard, or just love stories that stir the soul, you're in the right place.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Waking the Why, where we discover the purpose behind life's crucible moments. My name is Stacey Peterson, and our guest today is Hailey Babcock. Hailey, thank you so much for joining. Everyone, I have to tell you first how I know Hailey. So,
yes,
we grew up together in the terrace, good old Washington Terrace in Utah, right? Just Linda, a street away from one another. And I, probably a couple of years ago, was just doom scrolling on social media. And I saw Hailey pop up and got a little glimpse of what she's up to. And so I'm super excited that you're here today, Hailey, and you can tell everybody what it is that you're doing. Tell us what you're up to.
Yes, thank you. So a tiny little background story. So I was obviously always active growing up, kept that into my college years. Just started, I think in my late 20s, I became a Pilates instructor. At the time I had one child. Maybe I was pregnant with two. Well, anyways, I at least had one and maybe one was on the way. But I got certified as a Pilates instructor. And so I started teaching women at the age of 27 and kind of did that as just really like a pastime mom hobby while I was raising kids. My husband traveled a lot for work, so I was home a lot of the time by myself. And I just had this was my little outing that I would go to and do. During that time, again, I just started doing maybe like TRX fusion classes with Pilates and Reformer and all of this. I was living back east at the time. I was doing that, and I had done my last Ironman, which I didn't know was going to be my last at the time. But I had this like knee injury that just got misdiagnosed, on and on and on. And then by the time I finally got it correctly diagnosed, it was this massive surgery for me that was going to put me out for 6 weeks non-weight bearing, which to someone who's just done a major feat like an Ironman, it was really daunting. And, I was super bummed out. But at this time, I'd kind of started to realize that I needed a little bit more strength training. It was kind of coming up more in conversations and social media. And I kind of thought, well, if I don't want to be doing this anymore, or maybe I can't, maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore, given this knee situation, what do I want to do? And so I ended up preparing for this, and people, I had this surgery and people were like, oh, we're going to send you all these Netflix stories and all these books to read. And I was like, I don't want to watch any. I'm going to get certified to be a personal trainer. So this was in 2019. And I did this every day, all day. I mean, I went down a rabbit hole and just decided this is what I was going to do. So I started learning all of this stuff, and I started to apply it in 2019 when I went back to the Pilates world. And I would just do it with my one-on-one clients. I would start bringing in kettlebells, and I would start bringing in little pieces of equipment or adding more strength stuff to their workout. And then 2020 happened. We had rented our house in Boulder, and we decided to move back. Our renters were moving out. So we moved back to Boulder. And honestly, it was the first time. Like, I kind of played around with starting an Instagram, but I just never really had time to really devote to it. And so I came back, and my husband wasn't, obviously, no one was working. Everyone was working from home or barely working. And we were trying to see what the world was going to do. And so we just started shooting all of these TRX videos. And mainly because my clients that I was training at the time, they were like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, you have a TRX, that's available still. Weights were starting to be not able to be purchased, and gyms were closed. And so I started doing these TRX videos, and I kind of got this big I would say like the first 40,000 followers that I had were from like this TRX little time of my life. And most of them were out of the country. I was like constantly Google translating like what they were asking me and all of this stuff. And so I just started doing that. And then this guy that I trained with in San Diego, I kind of was like, maybe I'll just, I don't even remember how I started on maybe I'll do my own app. but I had filmed hundreds of these TRX exercises. And so I was like, maybe I put them somewhere. And he had worked with the app company that I'm with now. And he's like, yeah, just give it a shot and put some things on there and see how it goes. Well, simultaneously, I started taking these fat loss programming programs from my old business partner who was in Australia. And when I took these courses, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. And why don't people have this? Why don't women have this information? Because everyone's like intermittent fasting and then keto and then, blah, 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 and all of these different things. And honestly, it was frustrating and confusing for me who was just new into the space too. And so I asked this mentor of mine, I said, hey, I have this app I just started. I have room. I can put a course. Would you be interested in doing this fat loss course for women? I don't want to train men. I don't know how to train men. And honestly, I only want to work with women my same age. That's pretty much what I'd been doing. I mean, you don't get a lot of 20-year-olds in Pilates that can afford these reformer classes. And, so I just was like, I want to target this to anything that changes for women like over 40. He's like, sure. So we put together this course. Honestly, the first course was half of the people that had been clients of mine or people that I knew. It went really well, but it was a very small group. And then after that, we decided to do another one. And then I was like, well, why don't we put some strength training programs on there? We started doing that. And it kind of just was growing. I knew I had the best of the best helping me write these programs and the best of the best helping me with this education, because I was like, I can't catch up. I'm 40 going into this, like 41 at this point. I don't have time to catch up and be the expert in all things. So I'll just hire a bunch of people that know more than me. And that's kind of how it started. And it was like this slow, steady build until I interviewed Stacy and we just clicked. Stacy Sims. I happened to get off this. It was an Instagram live because everyone was doing that back then. So I got off and like a few weeks later, I just happened to email her and say, hey, by this point, people were starting to ask me like, hey, do you do anything that incorporates what Stacy Sims recommends? And I'm like, oh, I'm just going to ask her. So I reached out and I emailed her and I said, hey, would you want to do a program? Like, I'll do all the heavy lifting. I can write the strength portion. If you want to write the cardio portion, it can live on my app. I'll do the marketing. I'll do the sales, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, sure, let's do it. And so that was a life-changing moment for my business. Like 1,000,000%. 2.5 months later, I was down in New Zealand staying at her house. And the whole time I was like, what if I was a psycho and she didn't know? Right. What if I was a psycho and she didn't know? Like, we didn't know each other. And I was like, this is either going to make or break it. And we just truly connected down there. And that kind of catapulted me into the world that I'm in now. I had a much broader view and many more eyes on me. And so it kind of was that pivoting moment that really changed the trajectory of my life. And I always tell my kids to quote unquote, shoot your shot, because I held on to that email forever. And I'm like, I would have never had any programs if I wouldn't have asked this mentor of mine. And then I wouldn't have had this success with Stacy if I wouldn't have sent an email, and be okay if they're like, no, thanks, not for me. So that's kind of, now I'm just working with women over 40. I run different programs and have a lot of strength training, but that is all of the experts I bring in are really up to date with the latest and greatest of how fitness and nutrition, but how it really applies to females specifically in this peri and postmenopausal phase, because it's not always fun phase to be in. It can be challenging, I'll say.
Every day's a different day. You don't even know what you're going to feel like. And, there's been a few times where I'm like, I'm literally crazy. Those emotions are so crazy. And it was mentioned briefly, like 3 or 4 years ago, Cody, my husband, and I were like, okay, we really want to live a life of longevity. It's super important to us, but we really have no idea what that looks like. And I mean, 1 million people are talking about it, which causes so much confusion on what's right. And I know there is not one right way, because we're all so different and unique. And my husband has always said, you need to lift weights, you need to lift weights. And when I was younger, I did that all the time. I played sports, but through the whole childbearing years or whatever, I just didn't feel like there was any time. So we started, I'm in this mindset of like, okay, I need to figure this out. I need I need to know what's out there. But then I just very quickly overwhelmed with everything what was there. And then I came across your Instagram. It was either Instagram or Facebook. I can't remember which one it was. And I'm like, oh, well, first off, I know her. Like, and so for me, that felt safe and important. And then as I, joined your app and joined your programs, I'm like, oh my gosh, it has just been amazing for me. What I love, everybody, about what Hailey provides is programming that is geared to people my age, women my age, that's smart, that's challenging, but then I don't have to think about it. I just do what you tell me to do. So maybe talk a little bit about, obviously you have an app, there's programs in there, you include nutrition, you already mentioned you partner with experts, but why would you say this space is so confusing and overwhelming?
So here's the thing. Everyone has something to sell, including myself. I mean, I have programs that I sell as a job. So that doesn't always mean that everyone has ulterior motives, but it can mean that. I think everyone is talking about it. It's funny because when I decided, I was sitting out in my backyard filming a TRX. I was maybe getting close to turning 42. And I was like, I'm 47 right now, turning 48 this year. Wait, am I 48? I'm 48.
Like, hey, you're
48. I just rounded myself down. So I'm turning 49 this year. So this was like 7 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I only want to work, like I said before, I only want to work with women over 40. And I want to dive in to this market. And I remember thinking like, it's kind of untapped because people are just targeting women in general, or, however they want to do fat loss or whatever. So I kind of got in when it was not this big shift and in the spotlight for like perimenopause and menopause. Well, within the last 2 years, I would say it has gotten loud because it's a $1 billion industry. And so there's a lot of money to be made. Since I started this in when I was 42, 43, I honestly have women reach out to me every single day I'm a very global brand now. So there's probably 30 countries that are actively involved in my app. And so I get these women from all over. It's not just the United States. It's not just Colorado. And they're desperate is the word. Like desperate. Like I was told to do this and I was told not to do that. And I was like, what if there's not just one way? There are big rocks that everyone that has any kind of reputation in the space will agree on. And that's strength training, that's high protein, that's some kind of cardiovascular health to go along and support the strength training. So there are certain things that they're non-negotiables, everyone agrees on them. But then there's these little pivots of how you get there. And then there's a lot of products that people will sell that's like, oh, if you use this product, this is going to help you. If you have this and you only do this is going to help you. And you listen to what celebrities do, and then people think, well, this is just what works because the celebrity says it. And so they're getting these, mind you, they're getting these massive millions of dollar endorsements to push this product. So I came into it really just saying, how do I make an impact by bringing the most latest and greatest research and then let women decide for themselves? It doesn't mean that intermittent fasting is 100% wrong, but let's open it up and see what works best for women. Maybe something's different than it is for you, than it is for me, but how are you armed with the knowledge to be able to honestly feel safe about making a choice and not overwhelmed to where it is like this all or nothing approach? And it really comes back to boring, basic stuff.
That's what I love about your approach. And you say it over and over and over. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's like, so when you say boring, basic steps, like what? What do you say?
Like you should be strength training. What does that look like? Probably all rep ranges. You should be doing it at least a minimum of 2 days a week. 1 day is just not shown in the research to really move the needle. So 2 days is kind of a minimum. 3 days is pretty ideal in the research. If you're a fat loss phase, it's kind of, that's the sweet spot. If you're not even in a fat loss phase, that's kind of the sweet spot. You can go up to 4. Women will tell me, they'll reach out and be like, well, I'm lifting 6 days a week. And I'm like, then you can't be doing it at the level because your body just can't recover from that. So instead of just smashing, every single day and just smashing ourselves, which is kind of what we were taught to do, no pain, no gain. The sweatier you are, like the more that you got worked, laying there on the ground, not being able to get up means you had an incredible workout. And that all, when we break it down in the science, it's not true. None of that is true. And so, I try to pull back and say, okay, pick your strength training. What is your goal, first of all? What is your goal? If it's to build muscle and be strong, okay, cool. These are the programs that you kind of want to look at. You want some heavier lifting if you've earned the right to get there. A lot of those rep ranges will be in that hypertrophy muscle building range, which is usually around 8 to 15, although there is crossover. There's a lot of crossover in those rep ranges. So that is number one. You have to choose your goal. If it's fat loss, then you're going to have to go in a calorie deficit. There's no way around it. I love that some people can body recomp, but I tell people do not count on it because it's really hard to do. If you have a lot of weight to lose and you are a very beginner, it's easier to body recomp. The leaner you are and the more trained you are, the harder it is. So you just can't count on that. And there's a way to do it too. So now we look at, okay, those two things, fat loss or building muscle and kind of getting strong. Now we look at something else that we face in midlife, which is osteoporosis and osteopenia. Now, what we didn't realize growing up, being these cardio bunnies and eating very little, was that our bone mass peaks, give or take, depending on the study, somewhere between 20 and maybe up to late 20s, maybe 30 max. What we did in our teen years, if we were always dieting, we have a higher risk of developing this osteopenia or potentially osteoporosis. Even with lifting weights now, some of that, like we can course correct by lifting and making sure that we're eating enough, which is hard for a lot of women. I mean, there's plenty of women that have come in that are like, I've never not been on a diet.
Well, for me, I wouldn't have said that I was always on a diet, but I remember the very first program, one of the first ones that I did from your app, where you guys provided me my numbers, I about died when I saw the number of calories you wanted me to eat. I'm like, and it was in shred, and I'm like, I'm going to be eating more than I normally eat, but yet my goal is fat, and this makes no sense. At least it didn't make sense in my But I can tell you that shred experience was phenomenal. I really focused on protein first, right? And then ensuring I don't go over the calorie. But it was crazy of just my mindset. Growing up, I was like, no, I can't eat more than this. And man, I feel like I've been starving myself most of my life.
Yeah, you are not alone. And there is some, like I'm launching, well, you're in it, the Fat Loss Happens course right now. And somebody reached out to me. This is a little off topic, but someone posted, I'm so tired of hearing fat loss. I'm going to unfollow you. This isn't like, this is part of the course. This is part for the course. I don't get up, like it doesn't bother me. But when she was saying like, oh, because I want to learn about being strong and not fat loss. And I'm like, I get it. I want women to be strong too. But this is what every woman is coming, like the majority of women are coming to me wanting this. So how can I get them to a safe space where if they do have a lot of weight to lose, it's done correctly to where they keep their bone mass and they keep their muscle?
Price of her reaction a little bit, only from the standpoint of like, I get it. Like, why does that all have to be about losing fat? But this is the reality. If we have too much fat, and I wondered all about all this stuff, right? Thanks to Hailey. But just like visceral fat, all this fat around our organs, and like that is a problem. If you want to live a life of longevity, if you want to be healthy, yes, you need to become strong. But in that process, if we have fat I'll call it at a dangerous level, I don't know what better phrase to say, like we need to be intentional about losing that, right? And so obviously there's extremes. And so I get it. But ultimately, I think that is part of some people's journey that I would imagine in your space, you have to pay attention to. And I love that you said, creating something that's safe. Let's do it in a safe manner that balances. Like, you have taught me to not worry about the scale. And so I actually don't love weighing myself. I like to go into InBodies or DEXA scans, and I'd like to see where my lean body mass is. Like, that's what's important, because if I only care about the scale, I might celebrate that I'm down 10 pounds, but yet I lost that all in muscle. And so I remember one of my scans, I got back and my weight was lower. And I started to celebrate until I saw the number that I lost some muscle. And I was like, oh, like, I don't want to do that, right? And so I'm just so grateful for the education that you provide in this whole process. And so I think fat loss is a part of, in America, it's a part of our journey. We've got a problem there too.
Oh, yes, we do. I mean, and honestly, like you were saying, if we don't do it intelligently, and you really have to, you have to be okay with the long, slow road with fat loss and building muscle. Like, there is zero shortcut, zero. And so when we come here and we look at this, if we don't, if someone's going to be like, well, I need to find the information, I'm just going to starve myself and do a lot of cardio, your body doesn't care. Your brain doesn't care where that metabolism is coming from, that energy is coming from. So it will pull from muscle and it will pull from bone. And I think a lot of women don't know that. Maybe sometimes the muscle, but I'm like, bone follows, the muscle and bone go together most of the time. And so you lose that bone and you are paying for this in the latter 2-3 decades of your life. And no one wants that. If you ask somebody and they're aware, you're probably going to make different choices than if you didn't know that at all. And you were only looking at what was happening in your world right now.
Well, as I think about my younger years, I wanted to look a certain way and I did want to be strong, but I was always like, I don't want to get bigger. And so it was like, no, I want to be skinny, right? And now my view is, of course, everyone wants to look in the mirror and feel proud of where they're at, but it's crazy how it's changed. Like, I want to be able to walk down the stairs without holding onto a railing. I still, well, I'm 90. But like, now I look at where I'm headed and the kind of life that I want to live when I have grandkids and the kind of things that I want to do. It makes the long haul make complete sense. So someone would say, okay, you've been doing Hailey's programs for 2.5 years. How do you feel? And I'm going to say amazing. And they might look at me and say, but you don't look that different. I'm like, oh yeah, but you don't know how I feel. You don't know how, like, my balance is so much better. I am way stronger than I used to be. Like, there's so many things that maybe you cannot see physically, but that's not why I'm doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fine to have some of those physique goals, I guess I will say, but it's also like they're most of the time we have to have both. And that piece is so important. And so I love that the conversation is shifting to where my goal is, like, I always say in my groups, get in and get out. And people are like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, get in, do it well, do it to the best of your ability, and then try to, like, don't get greedy, because there is a component when I have one-on-one clients that will hit a certain weight and they're like, well, maybe we should just go for like 5 more. And it's hard because you're starting to feel really good. And to find that space where it's like, okay, what's realistic? And then how do I get out and spend the majority of the year should be on building muscle and bone, hands down. But it's a very different conversation for someone like you versus someone that is 200 pounds. That course looks very different. And so they're probably going to be in a fat loss phase for 4 times as long, where then they can start worrying about the building muscle and all of that. Quite a different conversation, but equally as important that we just look at, where are we going? What do we want to do? And what does that trajectory look like for the next few decades of our life too? How do we want to move? How do we want to feel?
Oh my God, I love that. It's not an easy journey. It's hard. And
it's hard.
every single individual kind of goes through their journey in a different way, right? And some people might find themselves at the end of the journey of like achieving their goals, and now they're going into maintenance and they're feeling fabulous, right?
Yeah.
Individuals that are just starting, so they've got some motivation. But sometimes when you're in the middle, where you keep reminding yourself this is going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. But yet sometimes it just doesn't feel like it. Hailey, what did you say to them?
Oh my gosh. I posted this a couple of days ago on one of the fat loss posts, where at the bottom, I just repeated, if you stick with it, you will change. If you stick with it, you will change. If you stick with it, you will change. And that really is like, we live in this fast-paced world where nobody wants anything slow, but it does not. Trust me, I've worked with celebrities. I've worked with every kind of person, but even these celebrities, they have access to amazing home gyms. They have access to chefs. You cannot skip the line with building muscle or fat loss done the right way. And nobody gets to, at this point in time, there's not a pill that can do these things for you. And so you have to just stick with it. But the approach so often why women give up is the all or nothing, and they screw up and they're like, okay, well, I'm just going to throw it all and then I'm going to start again on Monday. If you just stick with it 80% of the time, or even 70% of the time, or even 60 if you're starting out, that's better than start, stop, because that's what makes you feel like you're never changing. And the frustration just sticks there. And then it's like, well, something's wrong with me, or I can't lose weight. I mean, it really is every single time. The people that make it happen in my groups, it's usually not their first time. It's usually like, no one just sails through it and it just is a success story. It just doesn't happen. There are these breaks, but it's the people that stick with it and keep course correcting that will have the lifestyle and longevity that they want.
Oh, so about a year ago, almost a year ago, I turned 49, and I just had this impression, this nudge of, okay, Stacey, you need to work out every single day till your 50th birthday. And at the same time, you could probably see it a little bit in the back, I got this paper chain, because I had this thought of like, make a paper chain. So I have a paper chain, and I have 4 sitting right here with dates. And the very first one was May 18th. This was the first day that I forgot to work out. And I wrote what happened. It was a Sunday evening, and I just didn't typically work out on Sundays. And so I just literally forgot. And I woke up on Monday morning and cried, because I'm like, I am 2 months into this, and I already missed a day. Why do I even do that? Right. And for a moment, I had the thought of like, well, that was a nice try.
Yeah.
And then not too long after, I was like, what? One day. It's one day, right? It hasn't been one, you guys. It's been 4. I turned 50 on March 30th, but I'm like, this doesn't matter, because look at all of the other days that we do it. And so I love that you point it like, just stick with it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Hailey.
Every time.
Yeah. This is
nothing super like striking to that, but it is the cold, hard truth.
I think we have to give ourselves permission. Like, it's okay, and give a little bit of grace. We're not going to be perfect. And so your philosophy, and I've heard it over and over, of just like get in and get out. What that means, you guys, is get in. If you're going to do a fat loss phase and you're going to restrict your calories, get in, get it done, get out, and then go to maintenance. And then you always challenge. I love it when I've reached out to you before. You're like, well, what's your goal? We just don't randomly do things. I mean, we do.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't, right? Like, what's the goal? What are we leading to? And it's so good. Well, Hailey, if you left one last bit of wisdom, what would you say?
Well, since we're talking about health and longevity, and whether it's fat loss phase or not, I would tell the women listening, or people, if you have both men and women, I would say, what do you want for yourself? What do you feel like you deserve? Because if you feel like you don't deserve it, then you won't make time for it. But if you turn the finger back, which we're really good at taking care of everyone else for years, for decades, to turn it back and say, what is one thing that I want? If I want this goal of walking down unassisted down the stairs at 95, then what am I willing to do today? And it looks different for everyone, but you have to make yourself a small priority, because it's not selfish. It is actually what is going to make it much easier for you down the road, but also for your children, that it removes maybe that potential burden that if we take care of ourselves might ease some of that a little bit. So what do you think you're worth? And point the finger back and really just put a small amount of time and put yourself first for once, for a few minutes a day, even if it's just 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, do something that you are putting yourself first.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Hailey, for joining us today. Well,
Yes.
And you've heard it from an expert. Stick with it. Don't give up. Decide what is it that you want and know that you are worth it.
Thank you for joining me on Waking the Why. If today's story moved you, share it with someone who needs it. And don't forget, your why is worth waking up for.